This is Christopher Sernaque, hosting episode 1 of season 2 of the Current Topics in Science podcast. This podcast will address breaking scientific news in light of the origins debate and host interviews with scientists. This podcast is available on the following platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Video recordings of the podcast will be uploaded to YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Rachel England, writing for Engadget, a news site that reports and reviews the latest technological advances, said that the Pentagon officially releases UFO footage, end quote. In her article, she said, "The Pentagon has officially released 3 video clips showing unidentified aerial phenomena, aka UFOs, darting around the skies above U.S. military bases," end quote. In these 3 video clips, it is said that you can hear the pilots who captured the footage express surprise at how quickly the objects are moving, echoing similar accounts from 2017 when a U.S. Navy pilot told CNN he had seen a UFO moving rapidly like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall, end quote. Sue Gao, a Pentagon spokesperson, has said that these clips were released in order to clear up any misconceptions by the public on whether or not footage that has been circulating was real or whether or not there is more to the videos, end quote. Now, whether or not these UFOs are actually the space shuttles of an alien race is a subject for discussion. Some speculate that perhaps this is a new test aircraft or drone. Either way, this does raise an interesting question. What are the preconditions for life in the universe? This brings to mind the anthropic principle. The word anthropic means relating to human beings or their existence, and comes from the Greek word for man, anthropos. The anthropic principle indicates that our universe, and more specifically the Earth, has been finely tuned or designed for life. The universe displays fine-tuning at the atomic level. According to Dr. Jonathan Sarfati, who studied at Victoria University of Wellington, the electromagnetic coupling constant binds electrons to protons in atoms. If it was smaller, fewer electrons could be held. If it was larger, electrons would be held too tightly to bond with other atoms. Correspondingly, the sun of our solar system is also an example of fine-tuning. According to Dr. Mark Harwood, who studied at the University of Sydney, our sun is anything but ordinary. He goes on to say, our sun is exceptionally stable. Although it does produce flares, these are far smaller than those of similar stars, which have produced super flares 100 to 100 million times more energetic than the sun's, with associated high-energy particles that will be lethal to life on Earth. Also, the sun is in the top 10% by massive stars in our neighborhood of the Milky Way galaxy, providing a relatively high energy output especially suited for life on Earth. So it is by no means ordinary. Along those same lines, the Earth's position in the solar system demonstrates fine-tuning. To quote from Dr. Harwood again, planet Earth moves in a nearly perfectly circular orbit in what is called the circumstellar habitable zone, or the Goldilocks zone around the sun. This zone is where liquid water can exist, so it's not too hot to prevent all of the water from boiling away, and not too cold to prevent all of the water from freezing solid. For liquid water to exist on a planet, that planet must have a solid surface and an atmosphere providing sufficient pressure at the surface to prevent all the water from evaporating. In fact, on Earth, water can and does exist in all 3 states, liquid, solid ice, and then water vapor, and can move relatively easily between them. If the Earth's orbit were highly elliptical, there would be large variations in temperature, making the environment unsuitable for life. In like manner, the Earth itself exhibits characteristics of fine-tuning. Dr. Henry Morse, who obtained his doctorate in hydraulic engineering from the University of Minnesota, said, "The emphasis is on the precision of the divinely allocated quantities of each component. First, there is the precise balance of the waters of the earth between the oceans, rivers, groundwater, and atmospheric waters. Hydrology is the science of Earth's waters, and life on Earth is dependent on the fine-tuning of the components of the hydraulic cycle. He looketh to the ends of the earth to make the weight for the winds, and he weigheth the waters by measure. Also, the atmospheric heaven has been carefully dimensionized in size and composited to make life possible, as formulated in the science of meteorology." Now, some suggest that perhaps time and chance could produce a finely tuned universe. However, that statement can be tested by probability. According to Dr. Donald Batten, who obtained his PhD from the University of Sydney, the argument from probability that life could not form by natural processes but must have been created is sometimes acknowledged by evolutionists as a strong argument. The probability of the chance formation of a hypothetical, functional simple cell, given all the ingredients, is acknowledged to be worse than 1 in 10 to the 57,800th power. This is a chance of 1 in a number with 57,800 zeros. It would take 11 full pages of magazine type to print this number. To try to put this in perspective, there are about 10 to the 80th power, or a number with 80 electrons in the universe. Even if every electron in our universe were another universe the same size as ours, that would only amount to 10 to the 160 power electrons. According to Dr. Donald DeYoung, who has a PhD from Iowa State University, for any principle of science to be acceptable, there must be experimental results with general validity. The anthropic principle, which states that the universe is especially suited for the well-being of mankind, is one such assumption. From the evidences presented, we see that the anthropic principle is valid and that creation is a viable model for explaining the universe. Former atheist Sir Fred Hoyle states, "Common sense interpretation of the facts is that a superintelligence has monkeyed with physics as well as chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces in nature. In other words, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." Thank you very much for taking the time to learn with us on current topics in science, where scientific discoveries are examined in light of the origins issue. Please share and subscribe to the Current Topics in Science podcast. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thanks again for listening, and remember, the truth saves.